Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare Krishna, I am Rajarsi Dasa. Welcome to Hare Krishna today. On today's program, I have a disciple of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, an American disciple, His Grace Pushkar Das, the artist. Pushkar Prabhu, welcome to the program. So, on today's program, we would like to discuss with His Grace Pushkar Prabhu about his art, but before that, Pushkar Prabhu, perhaps you can tell us something a bit about your life before coming to Krishna consciousness.
Well, it's been a while, but that life's still going on within us and without us, so we're always reminded of that, whatever's going on. Actually, because I feel the same, I don't feel like I'm aged, because we're not really the body, this body is aging. So, and because also I was just recently in New York, it reminded me of so many of my youthful pastimes. I can't say that I totally detached myself from the world, but I could say that previously, aside from being a drug-crazed madman, whatever they were in the 60s, I was a politically active guy, and I used to do theater as well as art. Actually, I didn't do that much art for a few years, but I was trained as a small kid to do art. I was put in special schools, and so it's a long history. I mean, I joined this Krishna consciousness officially at 23. However, there were times when I had seen my guru earlier, like in 1967 and even 66 when he first came to New York. And as far as Hare Krishna chanting, I even chanted with Allen Ginsberg. He was a famous beatnik writer, hippie, not hippie, but a beatnik. And he had helped Prabhupada later, but he was promoting some type of chanting in his own method, even in the earlier 60s, before Prabhupada came. So I chanted with him once or twice, although he would chant Om, and Prabhupada was promoting Hare Krishna.
Maybe, perhaps you can tell us something about your inspiration or your attraction to the Eastern philosophy and the practice that Srila Prabhupada brought. What inspired you, what attracted you to this Eastern way of life?
Well, I don't consider it so Eastern. I mean, it seems Eastern to those who are not familiar. They might think East, West, North, South. The whole goal of philosophy and what they call religion is actually non-different from the word yoga, although people think of it as something full of hocus-pocus, different rituals, but the real core word, religio, means to relink. Religio, it's like a Latin, isn't it? And so this means that to link, yoga means to link. So we're linking up with our original nature, whether that's Eastern or not. I don't think it is, but as laymen in the Western world, they might think this comes from the East. It does come from the East. But in the West, things are a little dry. Most of it, you find after studying what we call Eastern culture, philosophy, religion, yoga, meditation, whatever that, most people at least come to the conclusion, who are into it, any type of Eastern type thing, that things came originally from the East, and they emanated west sort of through different ways. And you have quotes from various great personalities like Mark Twain, who said that he'd gone to India and he praised India. He said, nothing under the sun, everything must have come from India. I'm paraphrasing, but various personalities have been to India a few hundred years ago. They were astounded. Of course, even there's statements by Chinese and Italians that had gone to India, especially some Chinese, in 1,000, 1,200 years ago, they were amazed. Later on, many of the amazing things were sacked But still, you can see amazing temples. Recently, even they discovered underneath one temple that there was they have no idea, billions and billions of value, the dollar value of the various very ancient artifacts that are used in the temple from hundreds, even thousands of years.
So, Srila Prabhupada came to the West and presented some revolutionary concepts, including the idea of God. Now, you as an artist, you were conveying, you were describing God. There's a picture in the background, of, one of your paintings of, Lord Krishna. Perhaps you can tell us something about this concept that you're conveying as an artist, using your ability as an artist to depict God. But for a lot of people, they have this idea that God is just some abstract or impersonal being. So could you tell us something about what is your basis or conviction about depicting God in various ways, beauty and activities and all of that? Can you tell us something about the origin of that concept in the scriptures?
I will say that in this particular painting that we have here, there's Krishna. He has some consorts, associates.
Now that in itself is kind of questionable. People ask, "Oh, who is Krishna?" God has friends, consorts, and so on. In other words, it's sort of a revolutionary concept.
It's a revolutionary, and most people, I mean, if you just go on Air India, you'll see on the wallpaper inside the plane, I remember we were surprised in 1974 when I first flew to India. I saw there's Krishna, all the decorations of the wallpaper in the airplane in Air India was Krishna. I mean, this has been well known in the West for a long time. And people are very attracted to it. They don't understand maybe, but it's very attractive to them. There's Krishna, he's very beautiful. He has all these gopi means cowherd girls. He lives a very seemingly simple life. He did live, he does, eternally, but it's a very attractive life because this existence is fully spiritual. And in the West, I have some idea that God may be impersonal or some old man with a big beard, but if he is God, he can actually control everything. Why should he appear like an old man? He can appear like an old man if he wants, but in his original form, according to these Shastras, Shastra means ancient books, depictions, and revelations. There are many forms of God, or expansions of the original God, and in his original form, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, Ete Chanksa Kalapam Swam Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam, that amongst all these various descriptions of God, the original, purest form from which they all come is Krishna. And the word Krishna itself is not different from God, because on the absolute plane, Namachintamani Krishna, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, this word Krishna has all the full potency, Nija Sara Shaktis, of the original Krishna. So just simply the sound, people are sometimes bewildered. Why do these people chant this over and over, this mantra? Of course we chant many mantras, but what we chant, generally you see people chanting and jumping up and down and very happily, is this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna. And of all Sarvamantra Sharanam, Shastramam, all these mantras, mantra means to control the mind, and there's different shlokas and mantras, but of all of them, this Maha, great chanting for deliverance, is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and it consists only of 3 words, Hare Krishna and Ram, although they're said in a way that it's a mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. So these 16 words, or 3 words, we should say, they're not different from Krishna. So by propagating the sound, people are understood, well, I can't see God, or I imagine that God is nothing or a void. In fact, as we have this body or human form, it would be illogical to think that God would be any less, that he can't manifest or have as an original form, and also a human-like form, which this is even in the Bible. described that this is imitation, so after God. So I'm not an expert in the Bible at all, but it's said like that. So therefore it was, people are after seeing God, and can you show me God, or is God impersonal? These are kind of deviation, nonsense ideas. So God, of course, has his impersonal aspect. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti, Shabdite. Described that the first understanding, practically it's for anybody can understand, even a common man. Brahma, that I'm spirit, the body's changing, I am different from my body. And this is the kind of thing people are searching for, or studying books, what is God? They have no real idea. And even that idea is a vague idea. And the yogi is there after the second idea, a little higher, that what is the Paramatma? Paramatma, we are Atma, spirit, soul, and then there's the Paramatma. And we all have the same quality, we're all equal spirit souls, and we're non-different and different from the original spirit soul. So that spirit soul is within every entity, whether it's an ant, a microbe. Therefore, why we would paint such a thing is, it's very easy to see. It's the most, Krishna means attractive, all attractive. His form is attractive, he plays flute, he has attractive companions. And even if one considers that this may be some poetic idea of it, it's very attractive. It becomes more attractive. Other things are not, they lose attraction. We're attracted to so many things in this world, but they're all, if you trace them out, temporary, finishable. And if one becomes attached to them, there's always some misery. Dukkha yonaya evite. In the end, they become very stale, dry, and finished. Whereas Krishna is eternal.
Tell me something. Did you have any personal encounter? Did you personally meet Srila Prabhupada, see him? Can you tell us something? Do you have some personal encounters? Did he, give you any advice? Or
Well, when Prabhupada first came to the West, he was known as A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, and the name itself is very informative. That Bhakti means, someone might ask, what is this Bhakti Vedanta? A long word, Bhakti Vedanta Swami. But when one gets a little familiar with the Sanskrit language, and then he understands a very beautiful, most beautiful language. Bhakti means devotion, love, the yoga of love. Everyone is nowadays after yoga, and they have some understanding, a little bit of understanding of yoga, but it's like a ladder. And the final rung top is this bhakti, love and devotion. So then his name is Bhakti Vedanta. And yes, I saw him when he was still called Bhaktivedanta Swami in 1966, but I didn't have any conversation with him. Later on, when I actually devoted myself in 1970 and joined in 69, 70, then in 71 I actually spoke. And probably was very interested in putting out his books, and I started, there were other artists already came long before me, several years before. When I started working in that art department, we would get a little special training, special association, more than most people. And I did have some association.
was it in New York?
In New York, in Los Angeles, in Calcutta, in Mayapur, and Vrindavan especially.
So you met him several times?
Yeah. In San Francisco. San Francisco I didn't speak with Prabhupada, but in LA, in Mayapur, in Bengal, it's in Bengal, in Vrindavan, and it's near Delhi. And in Delhi itself, I also saw Prabhupada and spoke to him. And Calcutta, I spoke once 2 hours with Prabhupada.
So you remember anything that he personally told you about art or depicting the Lord or anything like that?
Well, he gave many instructions before I'd already joined. He gave to other artists, so many things were already established from 1966 to 70. 4 years, many things had already been established. And although I had some direct instructions also, just like you can cite some past time that in 1977, that was several months before Srila Prabhupada left the world, I was working on some, what we call maps from the Srimad Bhagavatam, describing the world, how it looks according to Srimad Bhagavatam. One could say in a subtle plane, so I had some association. Then after that was done, I decided I would paint. I was up in the building there in Vrindavan, and I painted the landscape. For some reason I thought all these trees in Vrindavan are spiritual, because Vrindavan is a holy place, a holy dham. So after a few weeks I painted these trees, and then I thought, well, this isn't right. I should put Krishna in. Why am I just painting these trees? But I want to show Prabhupada this painting. I put Krishna in with a couple of boys. So it was a very instructive lesson that when I finally got to show Prabhupada this painting, he looked at it for quite a while. Actually, his senses were dimming, material senses. He could, just at that time, his sight was still good. He could still see. He looked at that particular painting for long. It was scary almost, because he's a guru, and he's very, very, guru means heavy. So he didn't say anything for 30, 40 seconds, just looking at the painting. Finally, he said, "What is the idea?" In a very grave voice, and he said, "What is this? What is the idea?" So I said, "Well, Prabhupada, Krishna's here with his cowherd friends, and he's playing his flute. That's all. There's no." And Prabhupada said, "What verse is it?" He wanted to know what exactly it was, and I didn't really. Although I'd memorized many verses, I couldn't really say a verse. I said, "Well, in Nectar Devotion, it describes Krishna, the flute, and then Krishna's pastimes are infinite. Unlimited," I said, "unlimited." And he said, "Yes, Krishna is unlimited, but you are limited. You must stick to the book." So one should be careful how he... So we try to stick to descriptions in the book. What is Krishna doing? Not fantasizing, making up things, but these things are recorded or...
I would think this is an important point, because people sometimes they accuse us that, well, where did you get these ideas about God from? That so you're saying that he emphasized that the descriptions that you're depicting, they're based on some authoritative description from the scriptures. Is that the point you're making?
Right.
In other words, we can make up some fancy forms and say this is the form of God also.
Well, I didn't make up any form, but the form itself... In fact, I was a little bit concerned the important part of spiritual life is to please the self-realized person, the guru. So I asked him at the time, after he said that, he said, "Krishna is unlimited, you are limited, stick to the book." I said, "Well, could this picture ever be used as in a book?" And he wasn't so heavy. He said, he just said maybe like that. So I saw one time when Jadharani, she was one of the senior artists, she did a painting of Krishna crying in separation from Radharani. This is described actually. But it was a very advanced type of description. So Prabhupada was not so pleased. He said, "We don't want to make Krishna crying." Then just to kind of salvage the situation, he said this painting can be used for the story of Krishna having a headache, because there's a story like where Krishna feigned having a headache. Krishna actually doesn't have a material body, he doesn't get headaches, but still, he said it could be used. Prabhupada was very encouraging, always, and he never wanted to totally smash anyone. Generally, though, he was praising, and I know I did a portrait of him in '77 before what I mentioned in Mayapur in Bengal. A big portrait, 5 feet or so tall, and I did it, showed it to him. He saw me painting it. I was painting it kind of outside of his room. And then finally one day I came in and showed it to him, and he said, "Yes, this is very good. You know, if you paint like this, you will go back to the spiritual world. If you painted this, the cyclic succession." And he said, "This type of painting should be given to our wealthy members. Just give it to them, you know, so they can have it."
So part of spiritual life means that we can use the ability as an artist or as a musician. Can you speak a bit about that? Because sometimes people think that religion or worship of God is one thing and your work or your occupation is a different thing. So you're saying that you can actually please God by your disability.
Right, all things can be used, it says in Bhagavad Gita, Yena Saramidam Tatam, or that verse is Yatak Pravite Bhutaham. whatever Tama Byarcha, whatever activity he has, we call dovetail. Anasakta Shavishayan. And Bhagavad Gita states that one who gives up everything and does nothing, this is not pleasing, because nothing is actually ours in the first place. So renunciation is an aspect of spiritual life, but one has to understand it in a proper light. We have senses, we want to do activities. So if we don't do spiritual activity, when the chances are very good, almost 100%, that we're going to do illusory, frustrating material activity. So if one wants to engage in spiritual life simply to meditate on void, you cannot do it. There's nothing to paint the void, there's nothing to do for the void. You cannot speak with the void cannot tell you if the void or the impersonal void is the supreme. If it's someone may think the sky, well, it's a good example that God is all-pervading, like the sky, that's true, but that's not his ultimate form. But the sky, is the sky ever told anyone, yes, I am supreme? No, not really. And even if it started talking, then it would mean it had a personality behind it. So there's always the person is there. Therefore we have these descriptions of Krishna as a person, and we utilize any talent we have, whether it's sweeping the floor, painting a picture, typing, writing, walking. Whatever you do is described in Bhagavad Gita, Naiva Kinchik, or whatever we do, we know that we're not the doer. It's true, but there's activity going on with our body. So the body's a machine, it has to be used. Just like the tiny finger has to be used to serve the body, we are part and parcel, therefore we utilize our tiny body like a tiny machine part for the total totality, which is God. And of course he has his own person. He doesn't require our service. Our service is simply to benefit us. It's not like he's in need. If we offer him some food, we order a painting, he's still independent, fully satisfied. Purna Shukayate, or as it says, Nijalala Purna. He has no requirement that he needs something, but for our benefit, for our own benefit, so that we can engage in spiritual activity with our mind, body, words, money, activities, life itself, we can become enlightened this way.
Srila Prabhupada, he created quite an impact in a short period of time, all over the world. He attracted so many people. Perhaps you can tell us something about why do you think at that period of time so many people became attracted to what he brought from India? What do you think about that response that Srila Prabhupada received from all over the world?
In retrospect, Prabhupada had great talent, first of all. He was a manifestation. He had been a businessman. He was not in some naive, just a person promoting. He had full material knowledge as well as spiritual knowledge. So that was required. One needs capital. He knew how to raise money. He had full confidence. He had knowledge of the scripture. He had mundane knowledge. He had been a chemist and a pharmacist. And he could write. He knew English, although he had an accent. He knew English enough. He was able to attract local men in New York who could edit and clarify the English, clarify his books. He knew enough not to promote his books, that some had been printed already in his own words, but then he had them edited and cleaned up. He wanted to promote everything, so he was amazingly talented musician. He could attract. He didn't require. When he got an original mridangam drum from India, it was very nice after some months. But even before that, he had anything. He played his little hand cymbals. He sat in the park. But because he had he was such a virtuoso musician, he could attract people in every way, musically, by his writing, by his organization. He could cook perfectly. He could feed people wonderful food they never had before, and he would wash the pots. Before they realized that he is such an exalted person, he used to wash all the pots. And even if he didn't have that, he would cut an apple and distribute it. So he was giving himself all the time, and he had a lot to give, so much.
So you're saying the very nature of Srila Prabhupada was attractive to those who came in contact with
Why?
him?
Because he was acting selflessly, although he was acting so authoritatively and commanding respect, not demanding, but commanding, gradually more and more. He was authoritative, he could quote the original Sanskrit, so many things, he could speak in English, he could chant, he could play harmonium. There were some devotees who thought he just started playing harmonium. When Allen Ginsberg gave him the harmonium, it was a small hand-pumped organ. Other devotees didn't realize that he had been playing since he was a small kid. He had been playing the drums since he was a small kid. So later on, he was making fabulous recordings that are the most amazing ecstatic kirtans, as attractive as Krishna's flute, where he's just playing the harmonium and then dubbing in the mridanga, because no one could play like him. So we have these wonderful recordings, they're standing now for all eternity. We were listening then 45 years, and we never tired, they're just increasing. So he had amazing talent, writing, music, organization.
Before we conclude, perhaps you can tell us something about some of your artwork so we can maybe show our viewing audience some of them. Perhaps you can tell us some of the descriptions of
Well, one
the
thing is
art
I
that
printed a
you've-
book in 1997. I did want to print another one, but I have a website now. Let's see.
So this is full of the art that you have done.
Yeah, I had
over the
done so
years.
many pictures, but I thought it'd be nice to put a lot of them together in one book. And then a friend of mine helped write the text for the book.
Hmm.
And they were spread out through so many books, and no one was getting any particular notoriety. The paintings were done almost anonymously up to a certain point, and we started signing them. But I just thought it'd be nice to have a book. It'd be a good way to present my art in a cohesive format. That's one thing. Although these pictures had been printed before in other books, I pulled them together and put them in this. And one of my friends who wrote the text, he called it spirit realism.
Okay,
Just a phrase, catchy phrase.
right.
And they all have various, like this painting is of Krishna dancing with his consorts, but it was done for a wealthy Indian man who was 12 feet tall. It was never really used in a book, and I thought, well, I have a chance I could print it here. Of course, it doesn't look 12 feet in my book, but when you read it, it says 12 feet. And then another one here, this is the background where the Bhagavatam is spoken with Sutta Goswami and sages.
Okay.
And that had been in Europe, because I worked in Italy, I worked in Sweden and France, and England, and Germany over different times, and many other places. So the paintings are spread around, but at least with modern technology we can get them printed in one book.
Okay, Pushkar Prabhu, well, we've exhausted our time. Thanks so much for being on the program, and we'd like to share some of this art with our viewers. So thank you very much.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Hare, Hare Rama.